Two comedy gals, Mary Bakay and Sue Weaver. Two comedy gals, bringing you the good, the bad, and the... Oh man, that sucks.
Welcome to Two Comedy Gals. Hello, I am Mary Bakay.
And I'm Sue Weaver. Yay.
Yay. And we are Two Comedy Gals. This is our podcast that is directed to and created for women comics and women who want to be comics and everyone else. Also.
And all the fans and all the people and our friends. Yes.
Yeah. I know we're super excited today because we are going to have a guest. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Our first guest. It's so awesome. Wynter Spears. Oh my God. We love her.
I know. Although, you know what? We just realized we forgot to collect a bio from her. So.
Well, guess what? We forgot.
Let's share everything we know about Wynter and why we love her. Okay. I know that she's done the Women in Comedy Festival in Boston, probably 3 years running. So number one, I'm super jealous of her for that.
I know that she's been a comic of the week from Jackie and Laurie. That's true. And she used to host at Flappers a bunch of times in the before times. She has her own podcast now too.
Cool.
Yeah, with Sophia Zolan and Aisha Alpha. So
wow, that's great. What's it called?
I can't remember.
Okay, we'll ask her. You know, it's something else all three of us have in common. We've all done the Dork Forest.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so she's funny. She's an actress. She's done, oh my God, so much theater. She is a really accomplished actor.
Oh, so, yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen her in any of her acting stuff, but I met Wynter when I was doing that Women in Comedy Committee, you know, the nonprofit. And we, the first year, 2017 to 2018, we did a bunch of events in LA to help, female comics create networks and stuff. And that's where I met Wynter. She came to a bunch of our events.
Oh, that's so cool. I know you had Maria Bamford was the headliner.
Yeah, she was at the writing. She did our group. We had an all night writing, I don't know if when you were a little kid, but when I was a little kid, we used to have church lock-ins, and we would all sing, we would just all the kids would bring our sleeping bags and have a jamboree camp over in the church.
We've never
or what you didn't
know.
Might be a Texas thing, but we did kind of that type of we locked 200 women and we did writing exercises for 2 hours. And so Maria kicked that creative lesson off, although she wasn't able to stay and write with us. She didn't quite have that in her, but she did kick it off. She was great. Yeah, Maria was great. I don't know if that was specifically the one I met Wynter at or.
Yeah. Well, do you want to pull a card? We talked about doing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, let's do it because we love the woo. And you know what? I'm just knocking on my tarot cards right now. All right. So yeah, I feel like women are more open to our intuition. Yep.
Yes.
All right.
Very well known.
Yeah. And so for women in comedy, okay, here it comes. Oh, this is interesting. It's the 4 of Cups.
Cool, which I don't know what that is. So you tell us.
Well, what this is you could kind of see it from the picture. The 4 of Cups is when you have a lot of choices and actually you may already have what you're dreaming for, but you're sulking a little bit and you're like, well, that's not exactly what I wanted, so I'm just mad. So a lot of times also 4 of Cups will indicate you're kind of withdrawing inside yourself to consider kind of what you feel about something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
4s are generally stable numbers because a 4 is a square.
Yep.
But a lot of times it can show kind of a withdrawing from feelings that may or may not be real, but it's a time to just get yourself solid and straight. Oh, there she is.
Guess what? She's right here. We're just gonna bring her right onto the show, right?
Okay. Guys, all right.
So I love that we're starting the show with doing a card and like
Yay!
including her in the card.
Winter! Oh, virtual hug, virtual hug. Can't hear you. There
Yay!
you are.
Hello, friends.
Yay! Hi. We already started, so we're already podcasting. So
Well, we are already in. We are in.
We're in. We have questions. It's so great to see you. It's
good to see you both as well. Let's face it, it's good to see anyone at this point,
yeah.
right?
yes.
That's true. Well, we confess that we should have asked you for a little intro bio.
A bio.
We just made up a whole bunch. Well, not made up. We talked about.
I hope it was all good. I hope you talked about all the TV credits I don't have. I hope.
I confess how jealous I am of you with your women in comedy triple.
Can I tell you how bitter I was when COVID came around? I was like, I was supposed to go for the third time. I was so bitter. Bitter. The bitterness still in the back of my throat, I have to tell you.
It's all right.
Well, no, we did. We talked about you being an accomplished actress and in theater and
tell me more about how great I am.
Yes, we love you. We do. So we just thought we would get right into it. And also, wait, let me just one more thing about you have a podcast with Sophia.
Sophia and Aisha have the Shout Out Show podcast. Now, I am not on the podcast just because I have other commitments for things that I have to do, but their podcast is amazing. It's wonderful. It's fabulous. Everyone should check it out. They the second episode should be coming out very soon. I know the first episode has already been released. So,
okay, cool.
So Aisha Alpha, Sophia Zalan, and then our last Shout Out Show on the Dynasty Typewriter platform is coming out this Thursday. This coming Thursday is going to be our last one, and we have amazing guests that we're going to have on the show. We have Ida Rodriguez, we have
love her,
Atsuka, and we have Brian Kiley from Conan.
Conan, yeah, for sure.
So good. Okay, great.
Atsuko, I apologize right now for saying your last name wrong. I feel like I said it wrong. I'm so sorry. I feel like I said it wrong, and I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry.
No, that's good. It's all good, right? It's all love anyway.
It is. It's all love. I'm because I've done so much hosting. I'm so conscious of saying people's names that I'm like, oh,
yeah.
I know I was gonna have to say it right now. I would have been ready.
Right, for sure. Well, so we just thought we would ask you a few questions just about yourself to get started.
Sure.
Like, how long have you been doing comedy, stand-up?
True story. I had to write it down so that I would remember what like my comedy anniversary was. I believe 2013 was the first time I ever did comedy. I didn't know. First of all, if you had told me when I came to LA that I would be doing stand-up comedy, I would have said to you, "You're crazy. What's wrong with you?" But it was something that because I was used to, when I was in Chicago, I did theater all the time. I was used to being on stage doing 3 shows a year. That was the average when I was in Chicago. And then when I came out here, theater is very different. People don't want to pay you to do theater. I was like, I can't be doing free theater anymore. I just can't. So I was like, well, what am I going to do that's going to get me on stage in front of people on a regular basis? And I thought maybe comedy, but I wasn't sure. Yeah. So I took a writing class called How to Write Funny by this guy named Jonathan Solomon. He's been on Letterman, all this stuff. He's a super nice guy. And so I took that class at Santa Monica College, and it was all for people who were writing whatever, and they wanted to punch it up and make it funny. So like there were people in my class writing pilots, there were people in my class writing short stories, there were people in my class writing their memoirs, and they wanted to make all of these things funnier. Yeah. So in that class was when I started started writing as far as like, okay, I think I'm going to start writing jokes and see if that's something that I can do, because if it's not, what are we doing? So I started that. So I took that class. It was so much fun. I think it was 6 or 8 weeks. And then he has another class that he gave called Stand Up for the Actor. And that was the class that I took because I knew that I wasn't ready to like get up on stage and do stand-up when I took the first class. But then I knew that at the end of the second class, there's a show. So I was like, okay, I think that maybe I would be ready to do that at the end of this class. So
cool.
So the way that he ran it, which was so great, he sort of ran it the second half of the class like a writer's room. So the first half of the class, he would lecture about like different styles of comedy and like a personality comedian versus a character comedian and that kind kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second half of the class, we would pitch jokes that we were working on, and then other people in the class would pitch on those jokes. They'd say, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? So that sort of gave me an idea of, okay, this is sort of how you come up with an idea, and then sort of noodle around with it and figure out this is where the setup is, this is where the punchline is, all that stuff. And then at the end of our class, our 6 or 8 week class, we did our show at the Improv. And that was before, like now the Improv has that little stage and who knows if we're ever all going to be outside in the world ever again. But at the Improv, they have that stage, the stage that they have that's right behind where the box office is.
Yeah.
That wasn't even a stage yet at that point. At that point, it was just, you're standing on the floor and they had lit it, but it wasn't like a stage there yet. They had just started using that venue for smaller shows. So we did our show there. And because a friend of mine was running late and was coming to see the show, and I was one of the first people there because I come from acting, you're always there an hour early. That's just, that's the acting world. So I was there and he's like, well, when do you want to go? I was like, well, I have a friend who's coming. He's running late. And he's like, well, you can go last if you want. I don't know why I would say something like that because I've never sweat so much in my entire life. I was I couldn't even watch what anyone else was doing. I was just sitting. I wasn't even sitting in that room because I was too nervous to sit in that room. I was sitting in the bigger room on the other side that no one was in, just writing down my jokes and sweating, going, I'm never going to remember all this. I'm never going to remember all this.
Was it a 5 minute?
Am I going to throw up? What's happening? It was I think it was 5 minutes. I think it was a total of 5 minutes, and I could not have been more sweaty. More sweaty. And I couldn't believe how well it went because I was like, am I going to pass out? Is that going to happen?
That's amazing because when you come from theater and you're used to being on the stage and then all of a sudden, but it's a whole different thing having a mic and now it's all about you now. You're not doing someone else's words. It's you and your stories. And
then the expectation of laughter is always, that's stressful.
Yes.
That's stressful. Less so now, but then I was like, what is happening? What am I doing? And I've been on stage for years. So I was surprised at how completely nervous I was. Like how I was so nervous.
Because it's so different. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Mary, were you going to say something? You were going to jump in?
I was just, because I think that's really fun. Are you still in touch with anybody that you met in that first show?
Am I still in touch? That's an interesting. Let me. Now I'm thinking about who was in that class, and I can't remember.
It is fun.
Maybe not. Because there were people that when I first started doing comedy, like I literally started doing when we would go out and like. Because I started when I knew that I was going to have to do a show at the end of, as soon as this class started, I started going to open mics because I was like, well, I'm going to have to do this for real. So I would go to open mics and I would have my notebook and read my jokes that maybe were funny, maybe were not. And I was just like, okay, so that's maybe working. Maybe that needs work, like that kind of stuff. But there were people that I met while I was doing that, but I don't remember if any of the people that I was in class with, I don't think that I have, but there were people that I met while I was doing it that I've met, like, I don't know if you guys know Quincy Jones. He's the guy who was on Ellen and he had cancer and she got him a comedy special. His whole thing was insane. It was amazing. But I met him doing comedy at this coffee shop in North Hollywood that doesn't even exist anymore called Bob's Espresso Bar. And the claim to fame was the guy who ran the coffee shop. His name is Bob. He was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, I think. That was his claim to fame. But like it was this teeny tiny coffee shop and there was like a rug on the floor and it wasn't even a real mic. It was a musician's mic. So it was one of those weird musicians mics.
With that weird arm on it.
Yes, with the weird arm on it. And then if people had to go to the bathroom, they had to walk behind you while you were doing comedy to go to the bathroom. It was so bizarre. It was probably the least sort of conducive to comedy venue. However, like every Friday, people would go there, would work on our jokes.
But that's open mics, right? Like they're all always like, it's not like they're conducive to anything good, but it's fine. You go because you're like, all right, I'm just going to take a risk and stand here in front of people and hope that there's something. Right?
Exactly. And of course, it's like anything else. Some mics are better than others.
Yeah.
So let's continue with our questions. So who are you like, do you have favorite comics that you were inspired by, that you felt like, I love their style and I want something like that?
I feel like I always feel like I'm drawn to people who are drawing on their own life experience and things that are unique and interesting to them. Because and especially as I've gotten older and I've gotten to know more comedians, like Wanda Sykes was a huge influence. I've always been a fan of hers, and she sort of went through this huge transformation from like this sort of straight, very middle of the road comedian to something completely different in the last, you know what I mean? We've literally watched her life completely transform during her career, which I think is amazing. I love Marie Bamford as well.
Oh, me too. I love her.
And she, like, just to the things that she's been through and how she's taken like her struggles with mental illness and all of that and made it a part of everything that she does. I think that that's amazing. And I also learned a lot from her about the sort of repurposing of material. So when you look at, like, when you watch the things that she's done, you can sort of see the through line. Like, she had a one-woman show that she did that I don't want to lie and say what the title of it was. I believe it was called Plan B, but maybe not. But it was a one-woman show that she did, and she did it on stage in Minnesota, and I want to say it was right before she moved back to LA. So if you watch that and you watch the YouTube show that she did about her life when she went through her breakdown and moved back to Minnesota, and then you see like Lady Dynamite and you see the work that she's done beyond that, you can clearly see a through line of how she has sort of taken the work that she's done and sort of reworked it and refashioned it to be like a one-woman show, a TV show, a YouTube show. Like, I feel there's a thread in all of that. So sort of to see how she's taken her work and said, okay, it can be this, but it can also be this. Well, even when she did, I don't know if you saw the commencement speech that she did at University of Minnesota, and it's a bit that she did about them not wanting to pay her, right? But that's something that she's done in her stand-up, and she took that and she's like, oh, this is what came from this experience, and it's something she told as part of her stand-up, but also she did that as basically that was the bit that she did when she did the commencement speech. She's like, let's talk about how they tried to not pay me for this. Like, and I thought that was bold and hilarious, especially because she did it in front of the people who did that.
Yeah, exactly. Talk about taking risks, right? I mean, just takes so many, even with all of her characters, and just she goes all the way, you know, she gives everything. So, like, and
then you look at the faces of the people behind her, and I was like, oh, they didn't know she was going to do that.
Yeah. Oh, that is so good. Oh my God, balls. Okay, so thank you. I love that answer. It's so good. And then what about have you ever felt like you've been mentored through this process, or do you mentor anybody? Like, how do you feel about that?
I feel like I've had so many people who have been so great to me when they didn't have to be. You know what I mean? Like Ida Rodriguez, I mentioned she's going to be on our show. And she is someone that when I feel like I met her when I was doing a lot of hosting at Flappers, and she was always so cool and she was always so nice. And she was always someone who I felt like was really putting in the work. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like always, like was always just coming out to work stuff out. Because I very specifically remember one night she came in, and she was coming in because I think she was going to be on Colbert, and she was trying to work out her set for that show. And she's like, yeah, I'm just trying to work this out because I'm going to be on Colbert or whatever. And I was like, that's amazing that she's like, okay, this thing is happening. I need to get out here and I need to work it out. Same with Whitney Cummings. A lot of what ended up being her last special with the sex doll. I can't remember the name of it, but you know the one she did, the sex doll. She came and she was, I used to host a Tuesday night show at Flappers, and she was there almost every Tuesday night working on what ultimately ended up being that special.
Yeah, I think so.
So I saw her do what ultimately ended up being that entire special. I saw her do 10 minutes of that, 15 minutes of that, 20 minutes of that, because she would come in and just work on segments of the show that she needed to work on. So it was great to sort of watch her work on like the different pieces and the different chunks of that, and then see it sort of cohesively come together, which actually is the same thing I got to do when Maria did her last special, because she was coming to the clubhouse and doing half hour, 45 minutes to work out what the material of that was ultimately going to be. So when I ultimately saw Weakness is the Brand, I had basically seen that whole show.
Yeah.
Because I saw her work out the different chunks of that.
Yeah, I'd seen her at the clubhouse just like working out. That was really fun too.
And that was something else. She was someone that when she did the clubhouse, I got to open for her one time at the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Because every time she would do a show, she'd be like, anybody want to open? Anybody want to close? I got to open for her once and I got to close for her once. And those are the moments that are like, to me, those are mentorship moments. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
her being cool enough to be like, hey, I have to work on this stuff, but isn't it? She's like, there's all these people here. I'm sure somebody else has the material they want to get out there.
Yeah.
So like those moments are also great. Like she's been great to me. Ida's been great to me. Jackie Cation has always been so amazing to me and so wonderful, and really is the reason that I got to do Dynasty Typewriter before the world shut down, because I was listening to Jackie and Laura's show, and they mentioned that they were doing a show at Dynasty, and somebody had to drop out for some reason, and I literally emailed her and I was like, we need somebody to do that show, and she was like, yeah. So she didn't question me, she didn't say anything. I don't know if she was familiar with my work or not, but she was like, no, that's fine. So literally I told her that morning. I was on the website by that afternoon. I was like, what's happening? And that ended up being an amazing milestone night for me. Like so many amazing people I got to perform. I think I got to do Janelle James, who's an amazing comedian and writes for Black Monday. She was on that show. Kira Sultanovich was on that show. Virginia Jones was on that show. And then her and Jackie and Zach Galifianakis just happened to come through for that show. So it was an amazing, amazing night. And it was one of those nights where, and you guys know, every night is not like this. It was one of those nights where all the jokes were hitting. I was right in the pocket. I was just riding the wave. It was so good. It was one of those shows that you're like, did that actually happen? That's how good it was. I was like, I can't believe that actually happened.
Yeah, see,
completely amazing.
Here's what I love about your mentorship stories, Wynter. They all involve you working your ass off, and just the women and other people, mostly women, from what I'm hearing, giving you opportunities. And I think that is really great, right? And that's something I kind of see, because this podcast is Comedy Gals, right? And so Swan and I often like to talk about, well, what informs our experience as women? What makes it different? What's similar? And so what I love and what I see in a lot of women comics who I know is just like our capacity for work and getting in there and getting it done, and like how to build the stuff. That I think I remember hearing about that Dynasty Typewriter show. Maybe Jackie talked about it on the podcast afterwards. I forget.
It was it's literally one of the highlights of my comedy career so far. Great. And what has been it saddens me that some people have not had that experience in comedy, but I feel like so many of the women that I've met have been so wonderful. Like Jen O'Donnell, who does Ladies Room Show.
I love her. Yeah.
We were just talking about, she's amazing, right? So we were just talking about on the Shout Out Show, Sophia and Aisha and I, about how she was the one who introduced all of us, because I did a show at Ladies Room when they were doing it in the back of that bar off of Santa Monica. That's when I met Aisha. She and I did one of those shows together. And then I met Sophia at, because they used to do an open night prior, and one of the open mic nights prior to that, I met Sophia there. So she's someone who's been bringing people together forever. And I also did the first headlining set I ever did. I did for Ladies Room when Jen had moved it over to West Side Comedy in Santa Monica. So all of those moments are moments that happen because of women who are amazing in comedy and who are like, yeah, you can do that. That would be great.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, Jen started really the first all-women show, right? And she was definitely an inspiration for us when we started Hot Medusa, And so I think, when we saw you headlining there, we were like, let's headline Wynter, on Hot Medusa too. So we kind of jumped on that bandwagon. But I mean, one of the things, so that's kind of one of the questions I had about, do you consciously strive to build a network of women? Or is it more organic for you unfolding that way?
It tends, I try to surround myself with people that I like and people that I think have great energy and who I think are funny and I think have really done amazing things with their careers. Like Jason Stewart, I don't know if you guys know Jason, but Jason Stewart, he's an actor and a comedian. And I know Jason because he and I were in a Writers Actors Lab together. And he was always so cool, always so funny. And when I told him that I was thinking about getting into comedy, he's like, oh, I'll put you up. And the very first show I ever did, in front of people, I did at the Laugh Factory in Long Beach because he had a show there. Now, he had never seen me do stand-up. I was like, what if I'm not funny? You've never seen me do stand-up. He's like, oh, you're funny on my couch. It's fine.
Yeah.
So the fact that he would literally put me up and
That's
had never
amazing.
seen me do comedy just based on the fact that I was like, I think I'm funny. I just took this class. I've done a show. He's like, yeah, I'll put you up. He put me up on a show. And then not only did he put me up, I did like my 5-minute set or whatever it was. And there was this joke that I didn't know if it was funny or not. And I did it in the middle of my set, as I do most jokes that I'm not sure if they're funny. Because I'm like, well, if it's in the middle, maybe they won't remember. So I did this joke, and it's a joke that I close with all the time now. And when he was like, that Celine Dion joke is a closer. You should close with that. And I've been closing with that joke literally ever since. So he's someone who has been so lovely and so wonderful and so encouraging to me.
He's great. He's a gay older guy, right? That's
yes.
Yeah. He's amazing.
He's so nice. So cool. And has done and is so proactive about his own work. Like he is a web series out right now called Smothered. That's completely hysterical. And every episode, it's between like 3 and 5 minutes. And I think Helen Hong played a therapist in one of the episodes. Like it's one of those things that it's so great and it's so funny, but it's also really quick. Like every episode is, I think, like between 4 and 6 minutes, something like that.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'll definitely have to check it out. Well, how did we meet you? I can't remember how I met you.
I can't remember. Was it Flappers, maybe?
Was it? I thought it might have been one of those women in comedy.
Or it might have been Laugh Riot Girl, maybe.
Oh, maybe it was
also
that.
An option.
I bet it was.
Because, again, Bobby is somebody who's amazing.
She brings women together, too.
All the time.
I think that's where it was.
I want to say that was, and she's going to kill me. Please don't kill me, Bobby. But I don't want to swear to it, but I think that was the first comedy festival I ever got into was Laugh Riot Girl.
That's cool.
It might be the first comedy festival that I ever got into. I can't swear to that, but I think so.
Yeah, no, for me it was for sure. Yeah, Bobby, just so supportive, always wanting to like be inclusive and have really positive language and that kind of stuff. I mean, she's a pioneer. And
I don't know that Jackie would remember, but I feel like that's the first place I met Jackie Cation, but I could be wrong.
Oh, really? That's one thing we all have in common. We've all been on the Dork Forest. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about our episodes. Yes. What was your episode about, Wynter?
So my episode was the public restrooms episode.
A public service. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm here to serve. So I have this whole thing about public restrooms and like the tiers of public restrooms and which are the best public restrooms and like
how real conversation.
Go to the bathroom. So I was, because when she was like, well, you want to be on the door for us? What are we talking about? I'm like, oh, public restrooms, 100%.
Oh, I know. 100%. That's hilarious.
I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but if you want to check it out, I tell you about all the tiers of public restrooms. The number one tier of public restrooms is obviously hotels because they have the best public restrooms.
The best, yes.
Yeah, Starbucks got to be up there just based on convenience, right? I mean,
what's got to be up there?
Starbucks.
Starbucks didn't make my list. They didn't make my list.
Wow. Well, for me, they're all over the place, though, and at least
they are. But then you need a key to get in the bathroom, or you need a code, and there are many. They have many levels of security. You can walk in any hotel and go to the bathroom.
Well, this is true. This is true. Yeah.
The levels of security that you have to go to get to the bathroom in Starbucks is why they didn't make my list. I'm like, you can literally walk into a hotel, lie about the fact that you're staying there, and find a bathroom.
Where's the lobby bathroom?
I have to say, though, there is a Starbucks out near me. There's no key to the bathroom. It's just
that's cool.
You just walk in.
That is cool, but that has not been my experience by and large at Starbucks, right? Like there's it's like the Fort Knox of bathrooms.
Yes,
it's like
mostly.
They have layers of security to get to their bathroom.
All through LA, for sure. You're so right. Yeah.
And what was yours on, Suan?
Oh, well, so mine wasn't even that long ago. I just did mine in the end of December. It was on sweatpants. And
I listened to that episode, and I would just like to say that I learned so much. First of all, because
I know, right? She's an
we've all
expert.
become connoisseurs of sweatpants at this point, right? So I learned a lot. I learned a lot.
My God, I was so embarrassed about it. I actually was like, what did I even talk about? Was this even, I was like, oh God, do I need to apologize? But that's,
Yeah,
I loved it. I loved it.
Okay.
Yeah, I really loved it too. And mine was a Chinese ghost. You know, I'm obsessed with Chinese supernatural beings. So
it was so good. Well, and also the fact that you speak Chinese and then you have all of this like history of China, it's actually really cool. That's very special.
I learned so much about Chinese ghosts. I was like, I did not know it went this deep, Mary.
Yeah, they are terrifying. Yes.
and I'll never and I hate scary movies, so like I was like, oh, I'll never watch.
No.
So I was like, this is the only time I'm ever going to learn about Chinese ghosts, so I should.
Right.
That was amazing.
Well, kind of speaking of, like horror stories and stuff like that, even though you're our first guest, we want to start this kind of a female, right? Okay. So with being a woman comic, a Black woman comic, have you ever experienced a horror story in comedy?
Anything? Have you ever experienced anything? I don't know.
Horror story-ish.
Horror story. I'm trying. I'm sure that I have, but I'm having a hard time coming up with one now.
Sue was like, we should have prepared her.
But what I will say is that yet again, and I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to put anybody on blast. But another woman, female comic who I love, who I am very cool with, she hit me to somebody who was a predator who I didn't know. That I was hosting a show for her. And she's someone that like I used to see all the time. And she's like, I just want to let you know, I know you're hosting this show. So-and-so can be a problem. So watch your back. I'm like, thank you. Thank you. So that's all I was like, that's a lovely moment and I will be sure to pay it forward. So those are the kinds of things that I appreciate. Again, because I didn't know and she knew because she had a problem. And she was like, I'm just letting you know, by the way, so-and-so can be a problem. I was like, thanks for the heads up.
Will you DM that to us just so we know? And
sure, I'll let you know. Oh yeah. I'll let you both know. Yeah, I'll let you both know.
You know, and you know what really strikes me is that the best memories I'm hearing from you are like the high moments, and even like the low moments, like, because for me, like the low moments really stick with me when people are, mean to me, or, I've had guys introduce me in ways that you just can't even,
Right. And those are one of those things that's, and I've heard like so many, and somebody did I wish I could remember, but somebody did a sketch about it, about the horrible ways that they've been introduced by male comedians. And I haven't had a ton of that. Like 1 or 2 times someone has said something weird and I'm like, oh, okay. So now I have to clean that up when I get out. But like, that's been, fortunately, I feel like that has been few and far between because I know people who are like, oh, here's the laundry list of horrible things that someone has said about me before they introduced to me, which is why when I host, I always ask people what they want me to say. And I say exactly that, unless someone says something weird and I'm like, no, I'm not going to say it. And which, let's face it, generally that's a dude. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to say that. Come up with something else. But yeah, so I feel like I have been fortunate in that area, but I also feel like there's a level of, there are certain venues that I'm just not particularly interested in patronizing.
Yeah.
And part of that is because, again, of what Maria said. Maria's like, oh, I'm just trying to go to venues of people who love me. And I was like, because comedy is subjective. What I do is not going to be appealing to everybody. So I've always tried to, and because sometimes I feel like there's a level of, I understand the grind and going out and working on material and all that stuff, but there's also the level, there are some mics that just don't serve you. And I was like, if all it's going to do is make me feel bad about myself or feel bad about what I'm doing, there's no, like, that's not, I feel like that's not pushing me forward in comedy. I was like, so but like anything else, it's like when everybody remembers the 10 minutes they bombed in Claremont. I remember the 10 minutes I bombed in Claremont. Because I was like, well, these are the jokes. But it was funny because it wasn't just me, like, I bombed, the host bombed, the other feature bombed, and the headliner literally just talked to them for, I don't know, 20 minutes before they loosened up at all. So people literally didn't start laughing until, I don't know, an hour 20 into that show.
Oh,
So I was like, so people are like, don't blame the audience. I was like, that time, total blame the
see,
audience.
so this is what I love, that our horror stories aren't like social dynamics. Cause like for me, I got bullied when I was coming up. So it's very like, guys were really mean to me, but it was in Texas, whatever. But like your horror story is when you didn't get laughs.
I'm like, are you sure? Because these jokes killed last week. Are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah, sometimes the energy is just so weird that, what are you going to do? It's just a weird time and nothing.
Right. Yeah. But there are people, and I have great admiration for these people. There are people who can take a cold room and turn it. And I have much admiration for those people. Much admiration for those people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think like for me, my horror story was I did a show down in Laredo, like on Christmas Eve, and it didn't start until midnight. And then it actually didn't start till 1 a.m. And no one was paying attention to us. And three of us did 30 minutes each.
Wow. You're like, I could have been at home for this. What are we doing?
When we were done, we were like, we just basically stormed the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. We're just like soldiers.
Especially when you have 30 minutes, that's a long time to bomb. It's a long time to just be like, and then, but there's always like, but I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I always feel like if there's someone in the audience who's a problem, you usually know right away. Like if there's going to be one person that's a problem, usually if I'm doing a show, especially if I'm hosting and there's a person who's a problem, I usually know right away. And I usually warn people. I'm like, oh, so-and-so on the left, they're going to be a problem.
Absolutely.
Or if someone has been drinking heavily or whatever happens.
Yeah.
And that's only happened probably once or twice, but when someone they have gone a little bit too far as drinking goes, and you're like, they're potentially going to be a problem. I'm going to have to keep an eye on that. So that's always interesting. I mean, usually if I see that, I will warn people. I'll be like, oh, so-and-so on the left, they're going to be a problem, just letting you know. And some people, and I think there's a difference between people actively heckling and people who are just having a good time and they don't know how to express themselves appropriately in that environment. I think that there's a distinct difference. And I've seen people handle it great, and I've seen people handle it, well, I'm not going to say not great. I'm just going to say I've seen people handle it in different ways. Because I saw Todd Glass. I don't know if you guys know who Todd Glass is. Todd Glass, great comedian. I saw him eviscerate a drunk person at Bar Lubitsch on Santa Monica Boulevard one night because I don't think I was performing that night. I think I was going to support someone. And he was not on the bill. He just came to work on something. And he just came and he's like, can I do 10? And they were like, absolutely. And he steps up and he's trying to work. And there's a drunk person in the front and they're not getting it together. And he let it go for a long time. And then he said, you know what? I just came in here to work. He's like, and now you're going to make me embarrass you in front of all these people because you can't keep your mouth shut. And he just went in for 10 minutes. There's a part of me as a comedian who was like, they deserved it. You know what I mean? I was like, Yeah. But also I've seen, I saw Jimmy O Yang I want to say it was somewhere. It was at some comedy. It was at some venue behind a bowling alley. I want to say in Long Beach. I don't remember. And he was doing his set and there was someone there who was, I don't think their intention was not to heckle, but they kept talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I saw him literally, he pulled out the stool. He sat down. He's like, sir, what's your name? I told him his name. He's like, sir, where are you from? Told him where he's from. He asked him 3 or 4 more probing questions. They had a conversation while he was on stage. And then he said, sir, it was so nice to talk to you. I'm going to go back and finish my set. And he went back and finished the set, and the guy didn't talk anymore. And I was like, that's also a way to handle it. Because maybe that guy just wanted to be heard in that moment.
Wanted some attention, right? Yeah.
I've seen people handle it both ways. And I was like, I don't know that I would have had because I think your immediate, my immediate reaction would be to be defensive. Because I'm like, what are they doing? Stepping on my stage time. But by the same token, sometimes people just want to be heard.
Well,
So
that's
the fact
really
that he
true.
took that time and he was like, he just had a conversation with that man for literally 5 minutes. And then he's like, I'm going to go back and do my set. The guy was quiet for the rest of his set.
You know, it also depends how much like power you have. Like obviously he was already Jimmy O Yang. Like it's not like
he was not at that point though, because I didn't know who this was before this was before I'm sure he was getting work, but this was before he had the special. This was before he was all over TV, because I didn't know who he was. I put together after the fact. I'm like, oh, that was Jimmy O Yang.
Yeah,
But he, you know what I mean? But kudos to him for being that comfortable in that moment to be like, let me just take a few minutes to talk to this person, because maybe that's all they need.
Well, he also seems like a kind of more of a lower key guy, like in that sense.
But he seems to me to be very even. And I was like, I think I'm pretty even, but I don't know that I would have been that generous.
No, for sure. Like and I've been around people that have like obliterated audience members, which I never feel good about if that happens. You know, like you said, sometimes as a comic, you feel like, all right, that person kind of deserved it and good. Mm-hmm. But like, I still don't feel, I don't want to see people destroyed. I just don't. But sometimes they deserve it.
And sometimes people don't know who they're sitting in front of. I was like, oh, she doesn't know that she's sitting in front of Todd Glass.
That's right.
That's not going to right, because people don't know. It's like, because I was familiar with his work. I was like, oh, this could go south very quickly.
Yeah. I don't even know who he is myself. So
he's amazing. You look him up. He's really, really good.
I think I've seen him one or two times, maybe at Flappers. I don't know. But you know what? Like for me, I've always it took me so many years to get over just being terrified of a disruptive audience member. Like even that's probably still my first reaction, but now I've got like just some rehearsed smashes in my back pocket. But that's really hard. I mean, I think, because the better you get at comedy, right, the more control you have over the audience, the more control you have over the room. Even if they don't want to laugh, you're gonna bring them around and make them laugh. But I'm always scared. I've never had like a big blow up or anything like that. Knock wood, right?
And you never know how it's going to go. Sometimes people will acknowledge the fact that they're behaving badly, but also people can take that and they can tank your show. They really can. So you never know how people are going to take it. Because I feel like there was one time that I was doing a show and I was hosting, and I can't remember exactly what happened, but I feel like I feel like people were actually talking at volume level and were literally interrupting. And at one point I turned to them and I said, okay, I've let this go on. I said, but the truth of the matter is now you're talking over me and I'm the one with the microphone. So I'm going to need you to pipe down.
Yeah, for sure. Oh.
So, and they were fine and they were quiet for the rest of the show, but by the same token, they could have taken another tack and continued to talk over me for the rest of the show. You never know. You never know how it's going to go. You never know how it's going to go.
Wynter, thank you so much.
This has been so great. Thank you so much.
What should we end on? Like maybe you should tell us what you're coming up with.
Plug
next.
something.
Like,
what am I coming up? Oh, well, I have the big thing that's this week is we are having the finale. But I don't know when this is coming out, so I don't even know if I should say it or not. But we're having the finale of the Shout Out Show this week on Thursday, February 4th.
Okay.
But then you can find the Shout Out Show with Aisha Alpha and Sophia Zolan online wherever you find your podcasts. So make sure that you check that out because it's going to be amazing. And they're both so funny and so cool. And I feel so honored to have worked with them for all this time. So I'm excited about that, and I can't wait to listen.
Oh, my gosh. I'm definitely going to listen to that. Yeah,
and check me out on social media. I'm at Wynter Spears on Twitter, on Instagram, and Wynter Spears on Facebook. I post about all the shows that I have coming up. So if you guys want to see me, check out my social media, and I will let you know what's going on with me.
And
okay, yay! We love you, Wynter. Thank you so much for coming.
Wynter with a Y. Wynter with a Y.
Wynter Spears. Thank you, Wynter.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yay, right. Take care. See you soon.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Mary. Take care. We'll talk to you soon, my dear.
Okay. Well, are we going to stop recording? How are we ending this? Are we?
Yeah, maybe we'll stop. I don't know. We're going to stop
recording.